Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.
Welcome, everyone, to a bonus episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists podcast. We have a bonus episode with Amber Auger. I'm so excited. That's probably the highest I've ever been, by the way, Amber, on this podcast. I don't think anyone's ever heard that much squealing from my voice.
I'm honored to get the squeal. Yeah.
Well, you deserve it. Like, you're phenomenal.
Thank you.
And we should, right at the beginning, we should say this is going to be sponsored by Crest Oral B. But I really... Amber, before we get into, I know you have some things prepared. I just want to say you are one of the most dynamic speakers of our time.
Wow. I didn't even pay you to say any of this. I mean, thank you. I am shocked.
Well, because you've done several things for us, for A Tale of Two Hygienists, and every time the feedback is phenomenal. And I'm sure you get that feedback every time you speak and you get those little forums back. But, a little bit of a bump in the download numbers when Amber Auger's on the podcast. So thank you so much for making the time on a Sunday. Are we on a Sunday right now?
We're Sunday.
Today is Sunday.
Early morning on a Sunday. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Of course, it's my pleasure. And I thank you for always having such amazing commitment to the industry and being such a cheerleader for people and always finding the solution and doing it in a non-judgmental way.
Wow. I didn't pay you to say that.
I know, but I feel that way.
Oh my gosh. And Stephanie's here too, just listening to us like compliment each other. Stephanie, you're also awesome. Well, you're an up and comer. We really love.
Yeah, thank you.
Making huge leaps, Stephanie.
Yeah.
I jumped on and I was like, wait, you are our co-guest today? This is awesome.
No, I was so excited when I saw your name. I was like, yes. Because you've helped me a lot, Amber. You know, I just started this whole thing last year and you've given me some really good advice. So I really appreciate you.
Of course, that's what I'm here for.
So before we get into the meat of the stuff, explain that connection with people like Stephanie and people like myself. Like, what do you do for the industry? Because I feel like a lot of us, we've heard your voice for lectures, but we also, I think we've read a lot of the things that you've written, but what else are you doing?
Yes, I'm doing a lot. So I still practice clinically. Number one, I absolutely love clinical care. I'm 2 days a week. And for me personally, I started to diversify outside of the operatory because of carpal tunnel. So when, that happened, I started dental hygiene school with carpal tunnel. They said to me, are you sure you really want to go through this? And I knew deep down in my heart that I was meant to be a dental hygienist. So the great thing about a hybrid career like I have is I'm able to reinstill that passion when I'm outside of the op and bring all of that back in to my patients. And I think that's what really makes me a dynamic speaker, because I always love to have humor in my programs and real life case studies, and bringing in that emotional intelligence is so important. If I treated my patient the same way every hour on the hour, I would be so burnt out and absolutely hate dental hygiene. So, I do a ton outside of the op. So I have a couple corporate clients where I'm helping them with social media and helping them figure out how to build that connection to the hygiene audience. And then I also have, of course, my Thrive in the Op membership course. And along the way, I have amazing clinicians like Stephanie who want to get out and branch out and need help and mentorship. So that's a little, summary of what I'm doing and what my weeks look like.
So much. I don't even know how you can compartmentalize all that.
I will tell you, some weeks I ugly cry. So this past week, I'll be honest, Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening, actually, after seeing 9 patients, I'm looking at my schedule and I was like, I don't know who I thought I was, who scheduled this. And I was like, wait, it's me. I work for myself by myself. I need help. So the ugly cry is always a part of the process.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say as like a speaker and consultant that it's important for you as far as what you do to still be clinical, like to help you engage or be relatable with your audience and that kind of thing?
Absolutely. And when I first started this, it was 6 years ago. So I was in my late 20s. And when I first started, there wasn't many speakers that were my age. So immediately it came into, are you credible? You know, who is she? How long has she really been practicing? So it does make you much more relatable to the clinician, but also to the dental marketplace. People want to hear they want to hear our struggles. And that's what's been really cool, because my relationship with RDH Mag, I get to help with marketing strategies and saying, hey, this message connects, or hey, this message doesn't connect at all. It's really tone deaf. It's actually offensive. Let's modify this and really highlight the science behind your product.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Well, I think too, like we hear like as a everyday clinician, you hear about so many products, so many different things. I know we're going to talk about Crest Oral B. I promise we're getting to that, everyone. We're going to get to it. But I feel like we're bombarded with, no, this one's the best. No, the same exact thing, but the different like label on it's the best. No, this one's the best. No, this one's the best. And if you're not practicing, you can't really find out for yourself.
Right. And
you have to
so
take someone
much
else's
of that.
word.
Exactly. And so much of that is consistency, like consistency of the results of the product or even how you're using it. There's been times where a company reaches out to me, and I think this is really what makes me unique, is a company reaches out and says, hey, can you review this? And I say, sure, but I'm going to give you my absolute unfiltered review. You can pay me, you can not pay me, but like you're not going to pay me to get a 5-star review. You're going to pay me for my actual thoughts. So there's been times where one specifically, I picked up a toothpaste, a little Profi Cup toothpaste, and the thing splattered everywhere. I used it for about 25 seconds. It was one of those pastes where it's like all over your jacket, all over your shield. The saliva is like flinging. It's like, it's not a hard texture. You're like, it's falling out of the cup. So I provided that feedback to the company and they loved it. They were like, thank you so much for your honesty. I'm like, yeah, that's what you're paying me for, but I would not touch this. Even if you gave me 1 million of them, I would not use it. So, but there's another hygienist who absolutely loves it, and that's okay. You know, it's just a different perspective, and that's what we all need. I'm going to love some products that some people honestly are going to say, I don't really love the taste of that when I do. Mm-hmm. And that's the whole point is, as hygienists, we have to continue to go to in-person events, get those samples, try them ourselves, and see. I had a really interesting case like 5 years ago that I remember from an older gentleman, and I used to love a well-known product. Should I say the product name? I mean, I don't want to like...
Maybe not a Crest sponsored one, but
okay,
I do want to know this later after we're done.
After
airing.
hours.
Yeah, let's talk after.
You can DM me, I'll tell you what exact product, but it was for dry mouth. And I was telling the patient, I cannot believe that you still haven't used this. And he looked at me and was like, have you tried that rinse? And I was like, you know what? No, I haven't. That's the one rinse I knew that treated xerostomia through hygiene school. As a new grad, I kept recommending it. And I went and I said, give me a second. Went and tried it and I was like, that tastes disgusting. Now I know why you weren't compliant. So then moving on, I was like, I have to try these things. I have to experience them. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, speaking of trying things, Crest Oral B. What do you got for us today?
Let's get to it. So of course we all know about Crest Oral B and that oscillating bristle head, but many of us don't realize the true science behind it. So in 2011, there was a Cochrane review with power versus power, and specifically looking at the brushes with a rotating, oscillating action and comparing them with a sonic brush. And what they found side by side in a short term, 4 to 12 weeks, is that it significantly reduced the bacteria much more effectively. So the Cochrane review actually looked at 398 studies comparing the power to power. So we know that there's really efficacy to that rotational brush head. For me personally, I've tried many products, and with my patients, what I find is that oscillating bristle head is so compact that it's able to reach back in those hard to reach areas such as the distal of the second molars. Patients also don't have to worry about what angle they're placing their toothbrush at. So I find convenience is compliance with working with my patients. So that's really why I tend to recommend for all my patients that Oral B electric toothbrush.
Have you tried the new IO? I mean, obviously you have tried the IO, right?
Oh, I've tried the new IO. Have you tried the new IO?
I have tried the new IO. I enjoyed the new IO quite a bit. It's a lot quieter than the other ones, the previous
I actually
versions.
haven't tried it. I've heard a lot of good things about it, though. I know I need to try it now.
You need to
We'll
try
get you in touch with some people. We'll see if we
I'm
can
like,
get you
Crest,
one.
can you ship me one, please? Thank you.
My address is... No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Get
Would you
random
say that
packages.
like using the oscillating toothbrush, as far as giving your patients OHI, would you say that that's more technique sensitive or less technique sensitive than like a Sonicare or even a regular toothbrush?
I personally think less technique sensitive. It's
Okay.
it's just coaching the patient to know that they're not having to go, how would I describe this?
Like scrub?
Yeah,
Back and forth
they're not
scrubbing
scrubbing.
motion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not turning into a bristle pad when they're working, when they're going through. So really just placing it, angling it around. The great thing about this technology too is it does have an app on it. So it's got a smart technology where it will show you where you've missed plaque, which is absolutely, to me, insane. It's an amazing AI technology.
Okay, so your eyes are telling us one thing, Stephanie. Like, what are your thoughts?
So I am just curious as far as like the efficacy of the app. Like, do people actually use it? How does it know that you've missed areas?
Yeah.
Like that's just my ignorance as far as not knowing how this technology works.
Phenomenal question. And what I will say is I recently did a clinical study with Crest Oral B where I followed patients who had implants and I followed patients who had aligner therapies or traditional ortho. And what we did is we coupled the IO brush with their new TargetedClean head, and we got all of this feedback of how are the plaque scores, how are the bleeding, how was the overall inflammation. When we disclosed them, were they getting healthier with using the brush? The answer was yes, all of them did see clinical improvement with using the IO and the TargetedClean head. Then it came down to, do you like the app? So those patients who are 20 and under loved the app across the board.
Okay.
The patients who were, in their 40s or higher, they used it every now and then. They thought it was cool, but they weren't going to open up their app all the time to use it. And I'll be honest, I'm the same. I'm not going to open up my app every single time I brush, but the first couple of times, it's a great way to kind of check in and say, wow, I didn't realize that I was missing consistently those premolars. And that's what I find a lot at. Those premolars tend to get missed, especially because when they're in the chair, we see the most plaque on typically the posterior or right along the cervical third. So that's where we have them focus. And what happens, they go to turn their toothbrush, they go right to the distal and they go right to the front and skip those premolars. So phenomenal results of compliance with the brush. And honestly, even I pick patients who I wanted a real life study where I wasn't picking the patient who had the best home care. If anything, I wanted to pick the patients with the worst home care and the ones who struggled with compliance, because I wanted to really test how motivating is this brush going to be for the patient.
Yeah. As far as like knowing where it's at, there's something in the handle, right? That's like that tells you where you're at positioned in space. So anytime you turn the brush, I'm doing these really cool motions that no one can see on a podcast. That it tells you where you're at. So to answer your question there, Stephanie, I think that's the technology has come so far. I mean, even in the last 5 years, I know that technology's been out, for positioning and stuff, but it's not what it is now.
Right. So, a phenomenal technology. And it also they've upgraded. You may be aware that the Oral B brush in the past has had the little red light that will show you if you're pushing too hard. Now they actually have improved that sensor to allow it to have a light that indicates, the green light indicates you have enough pressure. So what we also found with the patients is many of the patients weren't pushing hard enough with their brush, which was very interesting to me. I always assume every patient's going to be pushing too hard, but to have that engagement. And what's cool, I mean, there's been times where I'm brushing, at night and I'm looking and I'll see the red and I'm like, oh, wow. I didn't realize that I had changed when I changed directions. I changed my pressure just enough where it could compromise my tissue or my enamel. So I love the technology.
Okay. Sorry, I got another little quip about that one.
Yeah.
So I messed up. I didn't read the instructions for use on the light, just FYI. Had no idea what all the lights meant the first time I tried it.
You're like, ooh, pretty.
And I'm like, oh, this is cute. I mean, obviously you can tell like when you press harder, like it changes color.
Yeah.
But like I didn't realize like, oh, green means just enough. Like that. I mean, green go. Like red stop. Like I mean, it makes sense. But if you're just not smart like me, then you have I don't know. You just got to pay attention. The other thing too, exactly what you said about like the pressure. Like I would find that when I rotated like my wrist forward a little bit, then all of a sudden I had zero pressure on my tooth. And I'm like, wait, how did I not like, this is I'm a hygienist. I should know all this. But if I can't do it, then think about what our patients are going through.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And first of all, not everybody will open up the box and read the instructions.
But you all should. If you're listening to this, you should. Don't
Don't
be
do
an
what
Andrew.
Andrew did.
Yeah.
Well, I dive in sometimes too. And then like once I dive in, I'm like, oh, why is it doing that? So the reason it's doing that is because of their novel smart pressure sensor. So essentially it's looking at how much pressure you're putting on. The optimal, the green light is going to be 0.8 to 2.5, whereas the red is going to be higher than 2.5. So just a little science for you there.
Wow, I didn't realize, and this just shows, that I'm not familiar with the new technology. God, I'm getting old, I think. But it's really awesome because you're getting that real time feedback when you're using the brush, because we're just seeing our patients. It's just a snapshot in time. We don't really know exactly what they're doing at home. So I think this is a really good tool for them.
It's a super great tool, especially for patients who are in that younger age bracket and siblings. Like, why not create a cool in-house challenge for it? Who's brushed the longest? Who's brushed the best? I mean, obviously, future Amber, if I ever have children, that will be like the competition every week. Who's brushed? Let's do a disclosing challenge. And it's so cool when we think about it. This is actually artificial intelligence technology that they have in the app. And again, it's the real-time coaching with the 3D teeth tracking on it to promote brushing all across every region of the tooth. So it's not just looking at the buccal, it's really looking everywhere in that mouth, which is phenomenal.
Wow.
You'll be surprised how many people miss the occlusals.
Yeah.
Or like oscillation rotation, like you just kind of forget a little bit. And then correct me if I'm wrong too, Amber, like it's been a long time since I've gone through like the training and stuff with Crest Oral B, but back when they were deciding on the lights, like the green versus the red, before they did that, they put little shock collars on your neck, right? It was either like, we should go with shock collars if you're pushing too hard, or a light.
I don't think that's true.
Is that not? Maybe I got a different training than you got.
Yeah.
That sounds made up, Andrew.
That definitely sounds,
That sounds.
I think you're confusing it with doggy daycare or something.
Oh, that's
right. Yeah. Maybe that was for your electric fence at home.
Oh, that's what that was. I got the instructions for use mixed up really bad on those boxes.
Yeah. You got to keep them in the same box. Yep.
Gotcha. Mental note.
So what's different, Amber? Because I know you mentioned the newer brush head, like the TargetedClean brush head. What can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I would love to. So the TargetedClean is an interdental aid brush. So it clips right onto the toothbrush, and you can use it to stimulate in between the tooth and the gums. So this is great for around implants or patients with aligners who have those attachments, whether they're a wire attachment, whether it is a composite attachment. What was really interesting for me is when we think about aligners, we think, oh, they're so much easier to clean around, which compared to traditional ortho, that can be true. However, I was baffled with the patients that I followed with the aligners who were showing evidence of flash. Do you both know what flash is?
Yep.
From the cement?
Right. So from around the composite, right, where there's, if there's too much composite left behind, it creates this thing called flash, which is where the excess composite traps that plaque, and it creates demineralization, which of course can lead to white spot lesions, which we all know can lead to tooth decay. The amount of flash that I saw with disclosing the patient and really prior to them using the Oral B technology was really eye-opening for me. And then I started to think about, I recently created a program called It's Not You, It's Your Saliva. So now I'm looking at saliva at a whole nother like Miss Frizzle / Bill Nye. Those are like my goals for my career, honestly, is to become a little bit of Miss Frizzle and a little bit of Bill Nye. I've got my little Miss Frizzle mug. You might see over there. But like literally my goals. So then I started to think, well, let's think about this. They're locking in their aligners. That saliva is not touching their enamel all day long. No wonder why it's harder to keep clean. And then when I was having them come back in and disclosing the patient and seeing the improvements of their tissue, having less redness, less irritation, less plaque scores, but we were still seeing on those occlusal surfaces and on the buccal surfaces, not necessarily right around the gum line, but still bacteria. So this is because the students were going to school all day, eating, putting their aligners back in. Well, that bacteria had multiplied throughout the day. The saliva is not getting in there. So essentially what we saw with the TargetedClean brush is it's easy to clean around those areas of attachments as well as in a proximal. So phenomenal feedback on that with patients.
I feel like sometimes the patients are given a mixed message though, from whether it's the general dentist or the orthodontist, whoever's putting the buttons or brackets or whatever you want to call it, that they say, be very careful around these. They're going to pop off. If they break off, then you have to have an emergency appointment. Like they create this feeling for the patients of like, look, I can barely even touch these things.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like if we are changing that narrative by saying, hey, this is a way to do what your dentist is asking, what your hygienist is asking, but you can do this safely at home, here's technology for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, you know, in a perfect world, we would have hygienists working with every single orthodontist, right? I honestly think that every single appointment that there should be a hygienist or two hygienists who are going in, disclosing all the patients, reviewing OHI at a higher level, and then going in, again, a perfect world, taking a nice air polisher, blasting that all off, and then having the doc come in.
That would be great.
You know,
that would be wonderful. I think that, gosh, hold on, let's dive into that a little bit. Like, how can we make that business model work? Because you do have to be careful of. Sorry, Crest, we're gonna go off into a little tangent. Because you have to make it has to pay for itself, right? Like it can't be a pro fee, so to speak.
Yeah.
But it could be some sort of a non-covered benefit that the orthodontist offers for. You know, at least the cost of the hygienist for that hour.
Yeah. You could even do an internal, like, in-house program, right? So if you think about it, if I'm disclosing a patient and I'm then air polishing and sending them on their way, that can take, depending on the bacterial load, I mean, with cleaning your room, with, you know, doing the whole infection control, 5 to 8 minutes if you got a good system down. If you've got pre-made trays, if you're pulling them out, I mean, I think it's imperative for our patients. I really do. And when we look at the science and we look at really what's sitting around those patients in the bacteria, the AA, the P. gingivalis, how that multiplies, how that affects your brain, the Alzheimer's patients have antigens of AA bacteria and P. gingivalis. There's so much knowledge around that. And if we can do a simple technology, depending on what powder you're using, the clinical studies have showed that different powders will help kill those bacteria in the mouth. So if you're explaining that as this is not only going to help us, think about the time that the assistants are going to save too, if they're not having to stop to pull off chunks of plaque and chunks of bacteria. I mean, let's be real.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. All right, let's make that happen, world. Let's do this.
Let's do it.
Yeah, just do it.
Let's do it. I mean, I've been on this whole saliva kick, so I am now in the process of like, I wish I could own my own practice in Massachusetts where I could literally do salivary testing, sleep apnea screenings, do a nice airflow technology, and then refer them out to another hygienist. Like that would literally be my dream. So if there's any dentists out there who want to give me their license and allow me to open a practice that's independent, that may be Massachusetts.
Just change the law out there, Amber.
I mean,
like,
that's just easy.
You're Amber Auger. You can do whatever you want.
I do know the Mass Dental Hygiene Association president, who's phenomenal, Sarah Crow. So we're biffles, but Sarah's making some big waves. So if we get it our way, we will.
Nice.
So when we look at what's different about the new technology and really what is the wow factor with the IO brush, it all comes down to how simple it is to use. So you turn it on, it's super fancy and it says, good morning to you. Then the best part is it has that timer right on the face of the toothbrush. Now, I will tell you, when I first started using this, I brushed for like 1 minute and 39 seconds, like every time. For me, that was just what I had in my mind, thought, this is 2 minutes. So what is also interesting is when you brush for that full 2 minutes, you get a little smiley face. It's like a little star that winks at you. Who doesn't love to be winked by their toothbrush? Yeah. For me personally, the compliance for me to brush that long, and that was the feedback from all of the patients too, with both the patients that were in the implant study and the aligner or ortho study combined. They really loved the fact that they had no idea that they weren't brushing for 2 minutes. They felt the cleanest they've ever felt. And a couple of my patients had actually transitioned from different power brushes and again said, I've never felt this clean. So when you think about this from a standpoint of a hygienist, and if my patients are coming in healthier, that's always, of course, our goal. But this is where I've been able to integrate in newer technologies into the practice where I have the effective time to do blood pressure or a more detailed oral cancer screening, have conversations about systemic health, go into the fact of salivary diagnostics and be able to offer that. It's saving me so much time because their home care is better. And what it does is it builds greater trust for the patient. They're coming to me and saying, thank you so much for recommending this. I didn't realize how important it was. Now that I'm using it, I will never not use anything else. And of course, not only from a trust standpoint for that, but it's reducing their risk of tooth decay. So then I become the phenomenal hygienist who they always want to see, builds the practice, everybody's happier. And frankly, I have more time. So who doesn't love more time? I get a bathroom break, maybe a little water break, Steph, for you, my goal is stretch break. So,
Yeah.
That's
I
what's
was
been
just
fantastic.
thinking too, I'm like, that brush it is kind of ergonomic in a way, right? Because I mean, if the less time that we're scaling teeth, the better for us.
Yes.
And so if we have patients coming in with like healthier mouths, cleaner mouths, and to your point too, at least me as a hygienist, what I'm passionate about is educating my patients. And so if we have that extra time that we can actually talk to our patients about stuff, heck yeah, I'm going to want to do that.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Amber, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of this stuff. If somebody wanted to reach out to you, they have more questions maybe about, Crest Oral B or other things that you're doing, how can they find you?
Of course. Well, first of all, thank you for having me.
That's such a dumb question. How can they find you? You're everywhere. That's the dumbest thing ever.
It's not a dumb question. It's not a dumb question.
I have to say it though. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's not a dumb question. I want to thank both you and Crest for having me on today. And the best way to find me is actually through Instagram, because you're going to come with questions, and it's so much quicker and more effective for me to answer your question on a live video. So each week I do Instagram lives. I go in and I have, ask me questions, and I can respond with video at a higher level. Sometimes if I respond through an email with, keeping it short and sweet, people have a different perspective on things, and it gets a little heated because they read something where I'm trying to deliver a message one way. So it's more effective for me. And my handle there is Amber Auger, RDH.
Clever.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for being here.
Of course. Thank you.
Thanks, Amber.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.